Mugger, ¿tienes alguna noticia para Scrogall?
Mugger, information, Scrogall.
Mugger. Gibt's was Neues für Scrogall?
Mugger, nur nichts für Scrogall.
Mugger, no Janus for Scrogall.
Mugger, any news for Scrogall?
Mugger, heb je iets te vertellen voor Scrogall?
Mugger, enough the gore Scrogall.
Mugger, tutte le notizie per Scrogall.
Mugger, jakie sprawy pro Scrogall?
Hello and welcome to Scrogall TV's third programme from our studios here in Coolleen. Well, we are entering the busiest time of year here in Corcaigwina, with tourists flocking into the area. Locals are flat out catering for these visitors. There's a spectacle of traffic and there's festivals being held all over the peninsula. Tonight we have a varied programme for you, including an item on an artist who has an unusual style when it comes to creating new works, a report on one of the many regattas being held over the summer, our interview and landmark slot, and finally an event which was held for its first time 46 years ago here in Dingle. As a predominantly rural area, the peninsula has had a long tradition of farming going back through the centuries. For a lot of us, our only connection with the farm is buying the finished product from the shelf of the supermarket or at the farmer's market. Once a year, the public in Corcaigwina get an opportunity to experience at first hand the work of these farmers and their animals at the West Kerry Agricultural Show. Scrogall went along to record the event.
Despite the constant threat of rain and unseasonable temperatures for July, the West Kerry Agricultural Show returned to the grounds of the Dingle Mart this year for the 46th time. The show, an important date in the calendar of the Peninsula's farming community, gives them the opportunity to show publicly the fruits of their work.
We carnival in Sassavalagas. Dean and Christian brother in a Crashola, big Bintigalish in the Fermiori, you know, as Kermer and Shore and Blincha. Who's about an Asik and Ocean, you know, I guess we share on a fag Fiheblina machine. As we are in Bagamak, I guess Tacton saw. Cover Margan at Shoal Temple, Law and the Shakti de machine. I guess Tasha.
With €20,000 in prize money to be won on the day, there were large numbers and a wide variety of animals on show, reflecting the enthusiasm of the farming community for the show and the various competitions. Along with the livestock, there were competitions inside for the best vegetables, culinary skills, along with arts and crafts. Meanwhile, in another field to the rear of the mart, the horse and pony competitions were well underway. We talked to one competitor about his chances in the competition for geldings.
Tom McCarthy Olix no on some Hantonish, Hosha Tacht Anahamalo Valley. Tom, can you tell us what kind of horse this is you have?
The Hunter, Cavalier, bred out of Cavalier, and he's a 5-year-old, and his name is Kerry's Golden Boy.
Very good. And tell us, do you come here to this agricultural show every year?
My third year.
And do you think it's improving?
There's more horses here this year than last year now. Yeah, I hope to keep going like.
And what competition now is the horse entering for?
We're going into a gelding, just all horses on his own like, yeah.
And do you think he'll do well?
Well, he done well last year, so that's why we're back this year.
Very good. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.
Back inside the mart, a very popular event with the crowds every year is the dog show. This competition attracts dogs of all sizes, colours and shapes. We met up with one competitor and talked to her about her canine friend and its chances in the competition.
What kind of a dog is this?
She's teacup, long-haired Chihuahua. She's not very common in Ireland. It's more a New York dog.
Like you'd have in your handbag, maybe?
Yeah, I have a tiny handbag for her.
And
take her everywhere.
What's her name?
Sponge.
Sponge. And do you think she has a good chance of winning today?
I hope so. I think she'll probably be the smallest dog here. I hope she'll win.
And how old is the dog?
5 months.
So will she grow much more than that?
No, she's fully grown. Fully grown.
Well, we wish her the best.
Thank you.
Along with the domesticated breeds on display, their farmyard cousins were hard at work in the sheepdog trials. The dogs and owners had their work cut out, traversing the course to accumulate points in such areas as the lift, the fetch and the drive. Meanwhile, back inside the mart again, there was a new addition to this year's show, which proved a popular choice of spectators. Greg O'Keefe from Cork and his dog Honey gave an impressive display in canine agility. The course involved guiding his dog over jumps, through weave poles and hoops, over seesaws and through tunnels. The show isn't exclusive to farmers and is seen as a day out for all the family. In the mart's parade ring, normally reserved for the auctioning of stock, buggies replaced the stock for the day, whilst proud and hopeful parents entered their young children in the Bonnie Baby competition. With another successful show for the organisers nearing its end, we leave the last words to a regular visitor of the show.
Don't look even on Rohini Kahoma Hountinish. Ronald Kunshanta Buntana was in law.
Tom Buntana had was a law, is brown old will lehe the rain and sogs. Didn't channel yet for the dying to the Dina Valamachus. Tasha the soup as a last of her.
Agus an dagan tún na hen blian chige.
Tagum an chud blian tá Tom Chathos can fe blian no marchin. Agus Shebian an rain na gairach agus na stock agus na capelis rode.
Agus dólach bhfuil van das timp na hart in isiniuh.
In Kerrod?
Bhfuil na mná bhfuil sé das. Há comórtas an das na mná agus das na ferrih.
Tá, all right. Dian wachhfuil scatgo gléiste so goma. Be sé decar a winner.
Big.
It's regatta time again, and last week we had one of the favourites, the Ventry Regatta, which draws people from far and near. Earlier this week, I went along to catch up with Jim Long about how Regatta 2011 went. Whilst they may not have had the weather, they made up for it with activities and enthusiasm. Talking Dini o Keen agus Congar go the Fiontraw done regatta.
Tagan current sé únart aber nuair a bhíon daoine thar timpeall bíonn an sahar leanta siar agus an son cirile tidan siad isteach I próiste Fiontraw agus leapan siad páirt an regatta agus bhí fear timpeall im líana is níorbh sé timpeall le sé im líana agus bhí sé anhaasta nuair chuig sé go raibh an regatta fós ar siúl. Agus bhíidir híos ar an dráig agus thugad bhíidir lánpáirteach is na himachtaí.
Bhí sé an sáig an am ceart. Bhí an tális. Agus tá cúpla rásanna de friúla a gcuibh, de ís de friúla.
Tá, aber ó thaobh an regatta é héanda tasníimiad le rás faoin na dóiag. Agus an son bíon rás faoi séideag, rás faoi hochtaíag, mar tha sé táchtach an béime chur ar na hóige. Agus iad a bhela, agus iad a sppraga, agus is it son aber na crúna amachansa.
Agus an bhfuil club áitiúla dos na hóige chun é chleachta I rinne bliana.
Tá club sa daingan.
An bhfuil, an bhá?
Duine siad gléir cleachta sa daingan. An na molla dulgarí Eddie Host as an obair goléir a chur isteach a géig cuasaí na bhóig. Cíirí hir.
Agus aberlomanis faoin an néomhóg féin is bád speisialta é?
Well, stocha bhfuil sé há néomhóig de friúil agus stíl héine chuirigh na háitna de friúil. An ceann go bhfuil taithígan ar ná an ceann cehar féidir hús fan cósta bín níos mó taithíá ar trúr. Agus an son béidir ar an taobhile den tír bín siad níos leithine agus níos English na cína hain.
Nach mé riomh ceann go dtí gur tháinig mé an sá. Is as le charm mé héin ach is brala míad tá go híbal is. Jim, Aberlum faoine an himachtaí eile a bhí ar siúl i ri an deir seachtainna.
Well, mar dúirte bhí trán na geisteagan agus an san madan de startan bhí siúlódagan siúlód imlíon bhfuil piocamíd áit de friúil na héan blion an nuair dionmar cosán an éamh agus imlíon na dionmar cosán corcaghine slíon dagan aber so bhí siúlódagan ón ifigan fuist go dtí camínól sin siar an tráig agus súsan san thar slíomh an olar agus síos go dtí tráig camínól.
So siúlód de gach duine?
Duine, ja. Aber níl sé ró jaachar aber timpeall 3 uair chuig nuair.
Agus an revelón daoine agus leanaí agus
Bhí daoine agus leanaí
le chéile,
ja. So brenn ar anna
tá sé anarúnach de clán omláin, anna bra.
Well, chun méid béim ar an clán na gáníí sa clí go nápach sé róiachar. Agus is tastin beidir dul áit na difriúil, so stáling ar sin 16 rodí be míid bhéchan ar amachchan sa.
Agus bhí cúpla rodí eile ar siúil leis?
Ja, tránána dés an bhí sprí rothíocht.
Anna bra.
Sin rothíocht timpeall ceann slé ón ifigan fuist siar go dtí dún chuoin bailnar téirigh agus ar neis go dtí ceann trá.
So níor gachar ar siúil ar an trán éair?
Níor bin tránána dés an, bin ar mór, agus an son tas na míad maidin de dánig le comórtas tógáil Cúisleán ar an dráig.
An yes. Codig mé cúpla cín, tá bhí sé réis.
Anna Alín ar fád aber bhí cuidecha níos viidir anna yes.
Tá si dochreisa an méad tá si nána dhéanamh le ganamh.
Nachhfuil, chuirnach sé únar aber bhí dínán ón roinc agus idir ceann den Tour de France. Sin anna yes.
Anna bha. A inrad eile?
Tréis san an san bíon na ráisina ar an dráig nó I ggur sport de plinne ar an dráig ri bín ráisna difriúil bín norín a bhean céile bhailar sin agus duine si ar job.
Right, bhí saon blian amháin. Níor bhuaigh míon rud nó.
Tíháin im líana gur an rás pacha bhí trochaistigar. sé sin do chréite agus bíhaint rudí ar nós kick fada. Mar níl taígar daine ar comórtas kick fada.
No.
Rud nabh gnácha sé. Agus bíon dúis líorthóid le síne ag muinterí hé ar dóhar. So gahar a gur tosóirí anna dúis sé hé sin.
Yes.
Agus an son tréis son bíon comórtas rinke. Fresh rinke. Mod tachi cuin.
Oscailte de gachine.
Bhfuil gur leanaí. Agus nuair bhíonn sé sin hart an son bíon comórtas filíochta.
Ceann nuair sin, no?
No, sé sin gan le cúpla míon. Is í tréad benna hé gríonn an feis. Agus im líana gur cuasaí filíochta is é Simon O'Feilán a bhíagain sin í a bhíagain. Agus san critní míid le comórtas cathab crit.
Cad é sin?
Crit, bíonn sé ar crúb capal.
Te go
an crit dro an polle. Agus má bhain tú ar an polle fain tú trí. nó má bhíonn sé níoracht crit don polle fain tú héan. So bhí fear ó America agus bhfuil sé am líana. So bhí anás ar siúd. So dúirt sé gur dúcha sé ar neiste ríist an blion se chun.
Agus beag daoine eile ina heil dúisina.
An míid tharbh buíoch le Penny's Pottery as na dúisna speisialta a dhéanann siad go speisialta go regatta fiún trá. So gur an ciadát há nébhóg dianta de potarocht agus gur an tarnáir fain siad pláta agus gur an tríomháir fain siad muga speisialta le logo regatta fiún trá. So rud deasa sé agus cíóisiad ar i gcónaí istóir.
An bhfuil costa sí ag buint leis an regatta?
Tá an dat agus tá míid tharbh buíocht na thorathirí go léir sin iad na gó timpeall an dúige fad a cóflathúil lena chud airigid agus sa son a hagan regatta fiún trá mar a méidir son ní bheith éon regatta an. agus go háir a dtíine nós údarrás na Gaeltachta agus ráidir na Gaeltachta agus na gnóna áitiúil go léir ar míid Harla buíochtá.
Agus tá síomh idirlín a gcuimhníis nach bhfuil?
Yeah.
Cad é
regattafiúntrá.org.
Arás, lovely. Gur míle maith agat. Don't forget that the David and Dingle regattas are coming up soon, if you missed that one. Now, as everyone knows, the country has been in a turbulent state politically over the last few years, and as a result, the last election saw Fianna Fáil ignominiously return to the opposition benches and replaced in government by a Fine Gael and Labour coalition. A large number of the TDs were elected this time on their first outing. Avani Hulawan in our studio slot talks to one such TD who was elected locally.
The major talking point surrounding this year's general election in the Kerry South constituency was the extraordinary performance of the Fine Gael candidate Brendan Griffin. By topping the poll, the Kiel native, at just 28 years of age, was the youngest TD ever elected in this constituency, and the first since Michael Begley from the Dingle Peninsula. Now we're delighted that Deputy Griffin has joined us here in the studio today to find out what exactly was behind this extraordinary performance and to find out what the future has in store. So welcome, Deputy Griffin. So firstly, you stood for election at a time where people wanted great change. But in your own words, why exactly do you stand for election for the Dáil?
Well, there are numerous reasons why I stood for election. Partly because people wanted change, but mainly because I felt I could deliver that change and that I could contribute to something better for the country overall. And there are many reasons why people vote for candidates. They vote for them on personality, they vote for them on their party, they vote for them on various local issues, and all of those reasons contributed to my election, I suppose. But I felt that Ireland was going in the wrong direction, that we needed change at a national level, and I wanted to contribute to that national change, and that's why I stood for Fine Gael, and I was delighted to have won the seat and hoping to contribute to the change in this country over the next couple of years.
And previous to this, of course, you were a councillor, but do you think you were elected on the basis that people wanted change or on the basis of the policies that you offered?
Well, as I said, I suppose there are a number of reasons why people would vote for you, and I felt that I was representative of the broader policies that Fine Gael stood for, but also as well, for example, here in the Dingle Peninsula, we had been without a TD since 1989 on the peninsula, and I felt that there was a very strong desire on the peninsula to have a TD based here. Also as well, the fact that I'm a young TD was very important to people. I think there was a strong feeling amongst the public that there was a need for a new generation of TDs in the country, and representative of new ideas and new thoughts and new outlook, and I think that was something that people saw in me as well, and that was important. But I suppose people felt that I could do a good job. I would like to think that in my time as a councillor that I had represented people to the best of my ability, and that people hadn't been disappointed by what I had promised in the run-up to the council election in 2009, and what I delivered as a councillor. So I think maybe all of those factors combined really helped me. But at the same time, there's a massive weight of expectation as well on one's shoulders when you do get elected. To the biggest fear I have is not to let anyone down. It's something that's with me every day. Is, you know, you're always conscious of the fact you're there representing the people, and you have to do a very good job. Failure isn't an option, and that is something certainly that I feel part of the job, you know. But it was, you know, overall I think a number of reasons really contributed.
Well, the policies you proposed to implement once elected was, of course, taking a 50% wage cut, which you took. Another was enhancing Kerry's health services. Will this not be difficult to do when vital A&E services are being cut in other parts of the country?
Yes, it will be difficult, there's no doubt about it. As a country, we're spending almost 20 billion per annum more than what we're taking in, and that has to be adjusted. And if long term, if we're trying to get the country back on track, and if we're trying to get some stability into our national finances and we're trying to restore our ability to go to the bond markets and borrow from the bond markets rather than having to rely on the ECB or the EU or the IMF to run our country. We need to have fiscal rectitude in the country. So it is going to be difficult to protect services at every level, not just in the health service, but at every level, in every department. But I think Kerry's position in relation to, first of all, our accident and emergency department has been made very clear that it is there under the reconfiguration programme for the HSE South area that the future is secure. But we need to be constantly vigilant about everything in our health service in Kerry, because everything is changing. But I would be confident. Next week I have a question into the Department of Health for reply on the future of the accident and emergency unit in Kerry General Hospital, on the new building progress update on the new A&E unit, on the current complement of staff, and whether or not that will be enough to run the new unit, if there will be additional staff required and all that. And I think you need to keep questioning, you need to keep asking those questions of the HSE and of the Minister, and keep those issues on the agenda. And since becoming a councillor in 2009 and since becoming a member of Dáil Éireann in February, I've been doing my best to keep asking the questions, keep the issues on the agenda, and keep in regular contact with the HSE and with the Minister on those issues. I mean, for example, in Kinmare, I was very glad to be part of ensuring that Kinmare Hospital will be included in the capital plan and will be built. And so I think you just need to keep plugging away at these things and keep trying, keep making the effort. But I would be lying if I said that everything is safe, everything is secure. I think in the current environment, nothing is safe and nothing is secure. That's why it's more important than ever that we have a strong voice in the constituency, in the county, fighting our corner and making sure that we hold on to what we can here.
Well, something of course that's very important to us here, especially in Dingle, is on Gaeilge. And the controversial policy which we have, of course, Fine Gael's policy towards the Irish language. What's your view of this?
Well, it certainly provoked a huge amount of controversy before the election, and I took a line on it that wasn't in keeping with the party leader's position on it, which was that I felt that the Irish language had to be maintained as a compulsory subject on the Leaving Cert. In our programme for government, we have, with the Labour Party, the plans to abolish Irish as a compulsory subject have been postponed, pending implementation of reviews of reforms in the meantime. So personally, I don't ever see the situation arising again where there would be a proposal from the Fine Gael party to have Irish abolished as a compulsory subject. That's just my own view personally. I don't think that will happen again. But I was happy to take the stand that I stood before the election. It created a bit of awkwardness, let's say, between myself and the then leader of Fine Gael, the now Taoiseach, in the Kenny. But I think he understands where the position that I was in as well, and my view on the matter. But I do feel that it was very important that Fine Gael put the Irish language on the political agenda, and bear in mind that the proposal to remove Irish as a compulsory subject on the Leaving Cert was only one very, very small aspect of the overall Fine Gael policy on the Irish language, which was to see a review in how we teach the language and try to enhance the amount of people leaving the formal school system not being able to speak Irish, to try to address that issue. And I think that's something we need to work on.
Yeah, well, there's quite a few issues there. Another issue that's important for Dingle is obviously the ice plant, which I know you've been working to retain.
Yes.
Where does that stand now?
Well, at the moment, we have recently received a 2-month reprieve where the contracts of the workers at the ice plant, the temporary contracts, have been extended for 2 months. Basically, the BIM are overall trying to reduce the numbers of people that they have on their employment books. And as part of that, they see the ice plant as an area where they can reduce their numbers, and they would like to transfer the operation of the ice plant to an alternative operator. Now, Councillor Seamus Cussy Fitzgerald and I have been working on this very hard. We met with the CEO and Deputy CEO of BIM earlier in the year, and we have been continuing negotiations with them, and also with the Minister for Agriculture, Simon Coveney, as well, under whose department this area falls. And at the moment, BIM are in contact with members of the local fishing industry to see if perhaps a cooperative could be put in place to take over the ownership of the ice plant. I think what's important here is that the ice plant is kept in some form of public ownership, that it's because it's of its strategic importance to the fishing industry in Dingle, that it would be kept in public ownership, and that ice would be affordable and accessible to the local industry. And that's what I want to see happening, and that's what Councillor Fitzgerald wants to see happening. So we hope to have progress in it soon, but at least we have the months of July and August now to keep working on this and to achieve progress on this. And the 2-month reprieve was welcome, and it was very much needed, because otherwise the ice plant would have closed at the end of June. So that was something that I had worked very closely with Simon Coveney, the Minister for Agriculture, on, was to ensure that he got approval from the Department of Public Expenditure, from the Minister Howland, for that to happen. Okay, very good. Very quickly, Brendan, where should the focus of politicians be, on local issues or national issues? I think you need to strike a balance. You need to obviously focus on your duty as a legislator and as a parliamentarian, but you need to keep contact with the people who elected you and the people who you represent. And it's very, very hard to strike that balance. Personally, since my election in February, I've been absolutely inundated with individual jobs, with the small things, I suppose, in the overall context of things that are very important to individual people. And that takes up a huge amount of your time. But you just need to try to be as efficient as possible. That's where your support staff come in. You need to have your office working efficiently. And I often find myself, actually nearly every night that I'm in Dublin, I find myself leaving my office at 11:30 when they're literally locking up the office, because you are following up on individual jobs. And that's the reality of work as a TD. And so you have to do that. And under the current electoral system that we have, you have to do that work. But you need to ensure that your primary responsibility, which is your role as a legislator and as a parliamentarian, isn't neglected. Trying to strike that balance isn't easy, and I spent the first term in Dáil Éireann trying to get that balance right and trying to get a system that works. And I feel I've settled in fairly well so far, but unfortunately you were under immense pressure the whole time in this job, and that's part of it. But I knew that getting into it as well, so I'm not complaining too much. Well, you're doing a good job so far. Thanks very much for coming in and joining us here. Thanks very much. That's Deputy Brendan Griffin. Now, for updates on these stories, Television Scrogall will be keeping you updated throughout the series, and Brendan Griffin will have updates on his website, brendangriffin.ie. Well, that's it for this month. Baby Nash and Misha Kuhn. Song of Full.
Thanks, Ava. Dingle Food Festival, which takes place every year in October, came about to promote and showcase the wide variety of fresh produce available locally, and to highlight Dingle and the Peninsula as a high-quality culinary destination for food lovers. In recognition of this, our landmark slot this month visited one food producer on the Peninsula with a business that's nearly 100 years in existence.
It began in 1916 when my granduncle came back from America and built a shop here. As far as we know, pudding was made from the very beginning. He ran that business with his wife Ella, who was an American lady, until the 1950s, and then my mother and father took over the business, and they continued with all aspects of the business, but continued to do the black pudding as well, and they kept it going until maybe the 80s, and it nearly died a few times in between, nearly stopped making pudding. My mother made it out of a Jubilee range, 2 cakes at a time, which is all that was selling probably at the time. My brother did it for a while. Then I took it over as a kind of a hobby in the 90s, and it stayed like that for maybe 10 years, just selling a bit out of our own shop, and my brother was selling some on the road as well then. It's made in cake form, which is probably unique to West Kerry, definitely unique to Kerry anyway, and it was never put in rings or in casings. It's all local product as far as it can be. We use obviously the blood, we use suet from the sheep that we kill. We use local onions where possible. We use breadcrumbs from Tralee. We use milk from Tralee. We use oatmeal from Waterford. The process is that the blood is used first, and then all the other products are added in, and it's mixed, and then it's put into trays. It's steam cooked, which is another thing that's unique. Most puddings are boiled in water. This is steam cooked, and it's steam cooked for 3 hours, left to cool, cut into squares, all different sizes because everything is handmade. So people often ask, why don't you have the exact same size and the exact same price? But we can't because the cakes they rise in different places and there mightn't be as much in one cake as the other. So then it's wrapped, labelled and out on the shelves as you see it. So I suppose it is our signature product and that's what drives on the rest of the products as well then. About 6 years ago then we started doing white pudding and that was a success. Then we started doing sausages maybe about 5 years ago. And since then it's kind of grown every year. We've grown some percentage on the previous year. We now deliver to maybe about 50 shops and it's going very well. We launched maybe a month ago dry cured rashers, so it's the latest edition of our range. So it's I suppose from small beginnings and a Jubilee range and even more primitive than that. I suppose we've come a long way. We have the equipment now. There'll be maybe 6 of us working here between full-time and part-time. That mightn't seem an awful lot, but for a small place like Scrogall, it's great. And I think the more that people support local producers, the more employment it will create and maybe keep more young people at home.
Well, it's encouraging to see a local endeavour succeeding and creating employment opportunities on the peninsula. Just to let you know that Thomas will be launching a new product, his pork and black pudding sausage, which will be available soon in outlets around the county. We wish him all the best with that. Earlier this month, Elaine Kennedy went along to visit David Scarff at his current exhibition at his studio in Dygate Lane. David is a sculptor who creates amazing pieces from debris collected on local beaches. Working with plaster and dye, have a look at this to see what can be achieved.
David, thank you very much for inviting me here today. Your exhibition is absolutely beautiful. It's called Béal Átha. Where does that name originate from?
Béal Átha is the name for the cuisine. Most people would know it as the cuisine. It's where a small or large, 2 small streams turn into one stream and they go into the ocean just in Dunquin.
Well, it's a beautiful space here, and I'm just wondering if you wouldn't mind maybe talking us through this particular piece.
Yeah, this piece is it's a bit unusual than the other ones in one way because these 2 pieces are cast first separately and then they're cast into a slab of plaster. I call her a block, but it's just not so thick to be a block. It's more like a slab. Mm-hmm. The colour situation here is more a chemical reaction than a paint. It's a dye that's placed on the plaster. It's poured onto it. It's no brush or anything. Okay. And then after about a month, the water evaporates from the plaster and drags the colour around into the detail.
What would you say the materials that you put into your sculptures? They are materials that you find locally on beaches.
Yeah, they're all from the Cusheen or Dingle. These stones, for example, are quite unusual for here because they're like you can see they're blood red, and there is none anywhere else. But there's three big streams going on to Smirrick Beach, and just one of them have that stone. Okay. It's quite strange. I don't know. I presume there's a bedrock somewhere up in the mountain where the stream comes from, where that stone is, and it's not in the other 2 streams like it's.
So David, this is a long-term exhibition for you here in Dygate Lane. What prompted you to go that route as opposed to the gallery route?
The main reason would have been that when I make an exhibition, it's a group of work, and you could say that they talk to each other or they make each other strongly. I very often think about a group of work has been a family, and instead of just looking at one individual, you see a whole family. So it makes each one stronger, and you get a better grip on what I'm trying to express. Mm-hmm. So the space here is good in that sense that there's no other distractions around. If a lot of the galleries would have maybe 10 artists, and you see, it's like meeting out 20 families in the one evening. You don't know who's what, Yeah. So I think each work strengthens the other one. So in that way, it was a good way to exhibit, I think.
And that exhibition is ongoing, and I would strongly recommend going along to see it. Now that's it for this month's programme, and we hoped you enjoyed our selection of reports. We have a busy few weeks coming up with events such as the Dingle races and the Lisbole Festival, which we will be covering for next month's programme. Ifa agus go dé tú slán.